The onset of the Syrian civil war in 2011 brought about one of the most urgent humanitarian crises of our time. According to the UNHCR, over 5 million Syrians have fled to neighboring countries for safety, with over 29,000 registered in North Africa, 2 million registered by the UNHCR in Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq, and 2.9 million registered by the government of Turkey, Syria's northern neighbor. You've probably seen images that represent what the refugees' experience is like: boats full of families desperate to reach land, masses crossing borders to reach safety, and crowded refugee camps with limited resources. But have you ever wondered what kinds of frameworks exist to protect and accommodate refugees, and are they being upheld? This short video will focus on the state of refugee rights in Turkey, the largest host of Syrian refugees. Why Turkey? Because of its strategic and political relationship with the EU, and the fact that it will likely become home to the almost 3 million Syrians who reside there today. So here are some facts. Although Turkey provides safety for Syrians, many go through Turkey as a passageway to a better life in Western Europe, which is perceived to offer more opportunity. 60% of refugees arriving on Greek shores are Syrians who've traveled from Turkey in a dangerous journey to reach Europe. Thousands have made the short but perilous journey from Turkey to Greece via uninsured inflatable boats. One of the reasons as to why Syrians wish to leave Turkey for the EU is that there's a gap between legal frameworks and the actual situation on the ground. So what are the legal frameworks? Firstly, there's the 1951 Geneva Convention relating to the status of refugees, which was originally limited to persons fleeing within Europe. The 1967 protocol removed this geographical limitation, giving the convention universal coverage. In 2014, the Turkish government enacted a regulation on temporary protection, which extended protection to Syrians in particular, who were forced to leave their country. The regulation aims to provide easier access to healthcare, education, and social assistance. This seems relatively positive and a step in the right direction. So what's the problem? Firstly, the UN Convention can only serve as a guideline in such a mass exodus out of Syria. Of course, nations like Turkey have their own priorities, as does the EU in hesitating to accept refugees. In addition, the regulation provides no time frame for this temporary protection, despite the ongoing war in Syria with no sign of stopping soon. The fact that Syrian refugees are dependent on this decision of the government, who can at any time put an end to this protection, leaves them with few options and a growing desire to make the journey to Europe. Let's talk about 4 aspects of the Syrian refugee experience in Turkey, starting with housing. Refugees living outside of camps don't receive any assistance in obtaining housing, leaving many on the streets. For those who do find housing, Syrians are usually charged more for rent than Turkish citizens. In terms of employment, it comes as no surprise either that Syrian refugees work longer hours for smaller wages and are often forced into precarious jobs in unregistered sectors. According to Amnesty International, this exploitation extends to more child labor because more members of the family need to work when wages are low. And what about education? Although Turkey is a signatory of the Declaration of the Rights of the Child, which establishes education as every child's right, very few Syrians in Turkey have had access to education. The rate of schooling for Syrian children outside of refugee camps in Turkey stands only at 25%, which the UNHCR stresses could create a lost generation. The children who are in school are taught as if they're going back to Syria, which keeps them from integrating into the reality of permanence in Turkey. Considering that the war began 6 years ago, there are Syrian children today that have never known their home country and may never have gone to school. Lastly, how good is healthcare? Syrian refugees are able to access healthcare in Turkey more than other groups of refugees. Syrians can purchase medicine at 20% of the total price, as do Turkish citizens covered by Social Security. But although the legislation for free healthcare services exists, the situation is less than perfect on the ground because Syrians suffer from more health problems caused by poor living conditions and nutritional deficits. All of this ties back to the fact that despite regulations, legislation, and conventions put in place, Syrian refugees continue to suffer from a lack of available resources and care. So why does this matter? Being informed about these issues forms the basis of wanting to make a change, and because it's time to face the fact that Syrian refugees are in need of a more permanent, standardized, legal framework to help rebuild their lives. So how does this relate to you? Hopefully, this video provided you with some new knowledge and that you'll take this to make a positive impact yourself. Things you can do include raising awareness and engaging in conversation regarding what's going on in Syria and why everyone should care. You could volunteer at a local organization that helps to settle incoming refugees in your city. You could also consider donating to organizations, big or small, that offer a lasting impact on the lives of refugees.